Welcome to Unwrap Reality, where we narrate stories on things that happen in real life.
You never think it'll happen to you, that someone you love could turn into a stranger overnight. Betrayal doesn't come knocking with a warning, it sneaks in, disguised as something familiar, until one day, you wake up and realize nothing is what it seemed. That's how quickly my life unraveled, all because of one careless comment I didn't even mean. It started innocently enough, small talk over the fence, shared laughter about neighborhood gossip, maybe borrowing sugar once or twice. But then came the accusations, the twisted truths, and finally, the gut-wrenching realization that the person I trusted most had been playing me for a fool all along. How do you rebuild when everything you thought was solid crumbles beneath your feet? I'm not the kind of person who thrives on drama. At 34, I've always prided myself on being level-headed, dependable, the one friends call when they need advice or just someone to listen. My name's Claire, and if you met me, you'd probably describe me as warm, maybe a little too eager to please. I live in a quiet suburban neighborhood where everyone knows each other's names, or at least pretends to. My husband, Matt, well, he's different from me. He's charming, the kind of guy who can light up a room without trying. People gravitate toward him, but there's always been this restlessness about him, like no matter how much attention he gets, it's never enough. Early on, I chalked it up to his ambitious nature, but looking back, I see now that it was a crack in the foundation I refused to acknowledge. Our house sits right next to Sarah's, a cheerful yellow bungalow with flower boxes under the windows. We bonded instantly when we moved in 3 years ago, sharing coffee on lazy Sunday mornings and swapping stories about our kids. Well, her kids, I don't have any. Everything felt so normal, so safe. Until it wasn't. At first, the signs were subtle, almost invisible. Matt would snap at me over trivial things, accusing me of nagging whenever I asked about finances or questioned why he was working late again. Then came the excuses. Sarah's husband isn't around much, so she needs help fixing her sink. Help? Since when did plumbing become part of marriage counseling? The tension grew thicker, like fog rolling in before a storm. Once, I caught them laughing together during a backyard barbecue, his hand lingering just a second too long on her shoulder. When I mentioned it later, he brushed me off, saying I was imagining things. And maybe I was. Except that deep down, I knew I wasn't. Still, I told myself it was fine. Relationships go through phases, right? Maybe we needed to reconnect, spend more time together. So I tried harder, cooking his favorite meals, planning date nights, but every effort felt like throwing water on an oil fire. The cracks widened, and I couldn't ignore the sinking feeling that something worse was lurking beneath the surface. It happened on a Tuesday night of all days. I stumbled across a text thread buried in his phone, a string of flirtatious messages exchanged between him and Sarah. Words like "can't wait to see you" and "you make me feel alive again" burned into my brain like acid. My hands shook as I confronted him, demanding answers. He didn't even try to deny it at first. Instead, he smirked almost smugly, as if he'd been waiting for this moment. That's when the accusations started. "You're the one who's always cozying up to her husband," he spat, his voice cold and calculated. What was I supposed to do? Sit here while you flirted with everyone else? Flirting? With her husband? The accusation hit me like a slap, leaving me stunned and speechless. Was he serious? Or was this some twisted game designed to make me doubt myself? His words looped in my head, gnawing at my confidence. Had I done something wrong without realizing it? Was I too friendly? Too eager to keep peace? For hours, we screamed at each other, the air thick with anger and disbelief. Every word felt like a dagger, slicing deeper into what little trust remained. At one point, I found myself crying so hard I couldn't breathe, clutching the counter just to stay upright. And yet, through the tears, a horrifying realization began to take shape. This wasn't just about betrayal. It was about control. He wanted me to question everything, to believe I was the problem. By the time morning came, I was exhausted, hollowed out, and terrified that maybe, just maybe, he was right. The days following the confrontation were a blur of tears, sleepless nights, and endless self-doubt. Friends stopped by to check on me, offering platitudes like, "He doesn't deserve you," or "You'll get through this." But their words rang hollow. How could I move forward when my entire reality felt shattered? Even simple tasks like grocery shopping or answering emails felt insurmountable. I spent hours staring at the ceiling, replaying every argument, every lie, wondering how I hadn't seen it sooner. Practically speaking, things got messy fast. Bills piled up because neither of us wanted to touch the joint account. Neighbors whispered behind closed doors, unsure whose side to take. Some even hinted that maybe I had been too friendly with Sarah's husband, feeding into Matt's warped narrative. Isolation crept in, wrapping its icy fingers around my heart. For weeks, I avoided social gatherings, dreading the sympathetic looks or judgmental stares. The neighborhood that once felt like home now suffocated me. But amidst the chaos, clarity began to emerge. One evening, after another restless night, I sat down with a notebook and started writing everything. Every argument, every lie, every piece of evidence that proved his deceit. It wasn't just about revenge anymore. It was about reclaiming control. For the first time in years, I saw myself clearly not as the victim, but as someone capable of fighting back. Each entry in that notebook became a lifeline, pulling me further away from the person I used to be. Slowly, painfully, I began to rebuild not my marriage, but myself. Then came the twist I never saw coming. One drunken night, Sarah called me, slurring her words, but desperate to confess. "I regret everything," she sobbed. "Not because of guilt, but because I know karma will destroy me for this." Her fear was palpable, almost contagious. She rambled on about how guilty she felt whenever she saw me walking my dog, how she couldn't sleep knowing what they'd done. Part of me wanted to hate her, to scream at her until she felt even a fraction of the pain I'd endured, but strangely, I didn't. Instead, I listened, letting her unravel over the phone. Armed with her confession and my growing stack of evidence, I decided to confront them both publicly at a neighborhood gathering, no less. Standing there, surrounded by people who thought they knew us, I laid out the truth, his lies, her betrayal, and the gaslighting that nearly broke me. The room fell silent, shock rippling through the crowd like waves. Some looked horrified, others refused to meet my eyes. Matt stood frozen, his face pale, while Sarah shrank into herself, unable to look at anyone. As the dust settled, I expected relief, but instead, I felt emptiness. Revenge hadn't healed me, it had only highlighted how far I'd fallen. Watching Matt scramble to justify himself, I realized the real battle wasn't against him, it was within myself. Could I forgive not just him, but also the parts of me that stayed silent for so long? That allowed myself to be manipulated, to doubt my own worth? In that moment, I understood something profound. Justice doesn't fix broken pieces, it simply exposes them. And sometimes, that's enough to start over. In the end, I walked away, not just from Matt, but from the toxic environment that had consumed me. Moving out was freeing, like shedding layers of skin I didn't even realize I'd been carrying. I downsized to a tiny apartment downtown, trading flower boxes for potted plants and awkward neighbors for solitude. Looking back, I see now that betrayal taught me more than pain, it taught me resilience. I learned to trust my instincts, to value myself beyond what others thought of me. Sure, scars remain, but they remind me of how far I've come. Healing isn't linear, but it's possible, one step, one breath at a time. So here's my question to you. Have you ever faced a betrayal that forced you to confront your deepest fears? If so, how did you rise above it? Share your story below. I'd love to hear it. Because sometimes, the hardest journeys lead to the most profound transformations.